Okay, I think we all have joined. So Bula Vinaka and a very warm Pacific greetings to our viewers and participants in the region and beyond. Today we have viewers from 17 different countries and 70 organizations. Thank you for joining us today for the Team Up and Oceania Paralympic Committee's webinar, Beyond Sport, the Power of Sport to Change People and Communities. My name is Roshika Deo, and I'm the Social Inclusion Specialist with the Australian government-funded Team Up program. Team Up is a sport for development program and has more than 60 partners, covers 13 sports, and our programs are in 6 Pacific Island countries. Team Up is one of a number of programs and activities driving the Australian government's implementation of the Sports Diplomacy 2030 strategy. You can learn more about Team Up and our work on our website, teamup.gov.au, or through our social media accounts or by signing up for our newsletter. Our partner for the webinar, Oceania Paralympic Committee, is a regional body focusing on the development and capacity building of its members in the region. We are truly excited to host this webinar to commemorate and celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. The webinar is for around an hour, and please note the webinar is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded at any time, you have the option of leaving the webinar and may rejoin us later if you wish to do so. We have 3 speakers. However, there has been a slight change with 1 or 2 of the speakers. Our 3 speakers are from Fiji, Tonga, and PNG. And each speaker will have up to 10 minutes. And when we are nearing the time allocated, our timekeeper will let us know through a bell sound. I will introduce each of the speakers just before I invite them, and we will have a conversational style presentation. We also have sign language interpreters. So if you are using the interpreter, you'd perhaps like to pin the interpreter on your Zoom screen for easier visibility. We'd also like to invite you to please use the chat function to share your comments or questions throughout the webinar, and our speakers will be answering the questions at the end. There will also be a short poll after the question and answer session, so please take a minute to provide your responses. We will end the webinar today with a show of Team Up International Day of People with Disabilities video. We'd also like to please request our viewers, if you can make sure you are on mute and to turn off your videos so we can have a clear connection, as internet connections can get wonky at times. So to officially begin the webinar, we have with us the president of the Oceania Paralympic Committee, Paul Bed. Paul has a long celebrated history of competing and administration in Paralympic sport. He won gold for Australia at the 1980 Paralympics and gold and silver at the 1984 Paralympics. In 2000, he was awarded the Australian Sports Medal and was then awarded the Order of Australia Medal in 2002. In 2010, he was awarded the Paralympic Medal, Paralympic Australia's highest award. He was elected president of the Oceania Paralympic Committee in 2005, where he has worked tirelessly to help cultivate and develop the Paralympic movement in the Oceania region. We are indeed very privileged to have Paul with us, and we would like to invite Paul to deliver the opening remarks. Vinaka, Paul, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rashika, for that very warm welcome, very embarrassing welcome, but thank you very much for those kind words. Well, everyone, as president of the Oceania Paralympic Committee, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all the people online for today's celebration of International Day for People with a Disability. Before continuing today's event, I'd first like to wish and acknowledge and thank in particular Ben Howard, Paul Oliver and their team from Team Up, which is the Australian Government's Sport for Development program in the Asia Pacific, for organising today's session and inviting the Oceania Paralympic Committee to partner this inspiring event. The theme for the International Day for People with a Disability in 2021 is leadership and participation of persons with disabilities toward an inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. COVID-19, though, has certainly become the most used word in our language in the past 21 months. And after our region's huge success in remaining almost COVID-free throughout 2020, several of our Pacific Island nations have now faced a sharp increase in cases in 2021. We know COVID has had a devastating effect in most communities across the world, and more so on our vulnerable people. Research indicates people with disability are more likely to die from COVID-19. They also face greater loss of income than people without disabilities. They also have reduced access to critical health services and supports. It's crucial now, though, that COVID-19 response and recovery efforts in all countries, particularly in the Pacific, must involve people with disabilities and their representative organisations in planning, implementation, and ongoing monitoring. Social and physical distancing measures, lockdowns of businesses, schools, and overall social life, which have become commonplace to curtail the spread of the disease, have also disrupted many regular aspects of our life, including sport and physical activity. Many people, particularly those with disabilities, are therefore not able to actively participate in their regular individual or group sporting or social activities outside their homes. Under such conditions, many tend to be less physically active. We saw firsthand the result that lockdown measures had on some of our National Paralympic Committee's team's preparations for Tokyo. Some of our athletes were underprepared, with limited opportunity for effective pre-games training and competition. As the world, though, begins to recover from COVID, there will be significant issues to be addressed to ensure the safety of sporting events at all levels and the well-being of sporting organisations. Sport, though, has long been considered a valuable tool for fostering communication and building bridges between communities and generations. In essence, sport has the power to change people and communities. It has become the tool for many in our disadvantaged communities to find, connect, and change the lives of our hidden people. This brings us to today's event and theme, which is Beyond Sport, the power of sport to change people and communities. As OPC president, I wouldn't be in this position without sport. Having a disability, it was the power of sport that gave me the opportunity to not only become a Paralympian, but to successfully engage in a career that opened many doors, with people now judging me on my ability and capability, not my disability. Today, we will hear from three amazing speakers who also provide living proof of the power of sport. Mary Rhoden from Fiji, Netina Latu Veya, Netina from Tonga, and Sebastian Egan from Papua New Guinea. Each of these fantastic individuals have used sport in widely different contexts to empower their future careers and at the same time to be the human catalyst to change community perceptions. Each speaker will talk of the importance of sport in changing their lives and that of the community and society around them. I know you will enjoy their stories. Thank you again for attending today and for Team Up for organising this special event. And I look forward to hearing from our fantastic speakers. Thank you.
Vinaka, Paul, for those inspiring words. And we also look forward to hearing these three speakers. So now moving on to the speakers. The first of our three speakers is from Fiji and a dear friend, Mary Rhoden. Mary is a well-respected person in the sports arena in Fiji, being a flag bearer for Fiji at the 2016 Rio Paralympics, a Pacific Games gold medalist in 2015, and the 2016 Fiji Sportswoman of the Year. Mary has also made a huge contribution to women living with disabilities in Fiji. As part of the Spinal Injuries Association, she is a driving force behind their programs to support access to employment and livelihood for women with disabilities in Fiji. Bula Vinaka Mary, how are you doing?
Bula Vinaka Roshika, Bula Vinaka all. I'm all good, thank you.
It's so lovely to have you join us this afternoon. Maybe to begin with, Mary, perhaps you can briefly touch on how you sustain your disability and the impact it had on your life.
Minaka, yeah, back in 2006 was when I became disabled, and that was due to an old injury on the back. But then I've become a wheelchair user for 15 years now, but that hasn't, I wouldn't say that it has pulled me down. I believe that that has just made me stronger, made me confident, made me more, I would say, a conqueror, more victorious. I haven't looked down on my life since I've become a wheelchair user. I see life as it is, as way back, but then a little change that I have to adapt to, making those changes, getting used to not being, just getting up and dressing up and running off to work. Those little changes in life has made me the strong person I am now. Minaka.
Thank you, Mary. Before we proceed, we've had a few people just join us. Can I please request if you could put yourself on mute and perhaps put your video off so that we can have a good internet connection. So thank you, Mary, for sharing that part of your journey. You joined the Australian government-supported Sport for Development program, Smashdown Barriers, in 2014, which is still supported through Team Up today. How did this program change your life?
Joining sports 2014 for Smashdown Barriers was a big change, yeah, because it made me realize that, that yes, that there's still more that I've always wanted to be part of sports, and that opened up the way, opened up the door to be active again in sports, and that was awesome. I would always want to be part of sports because of that. A new life, coming back to play when you are disabled, and to adapt to the changes to enable you to participate in sports. That was something really big for me, and I really enjoyed all that while.
Yep. And for all that, for all the, participation in sports, your contribution to sports, you were named Fiji Sportswoman of the Year in 2016. And it was a proud moment for women and girls in Fiji, women and girls of all diversities. So what impact did you think that this had on people with disabilities and your work?
I think that really made a big change to the mindset of persons with disabilities, in particular women, because in 2017, to prove that, we had the highest number of persons with disabilities participating in the Oceania Paralympic Championships that was held here in Fiji, hosted by Fiji Table Tennis. That was the highest number ever, 17 persons with disabilities. And just communicating with my colleagues wherever I go, my wheelchair user friends, I'm promoting the sport, and I can see the positive mind that's coming back from them, feedbacks on how they see that my participation, and that they are, opening up to be part of sports too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely inspiring and a role model. You were also the first Pacific Islander elected as the Oceania athlete representative on the Oceania Paralympic Committee. Can you please share how you've used your athlete voice on this committee to promote sport for people with disability and also other social issues?
Thank you. I've had the chance to speak to other athletes in 2 of the Pacific Games that I had participated in PNG, Vanuatu, sorry, and also in Samoa. And that was a good experience, talking and sharing about what we are facing, and coming back to put that across to the Oceania board, and to see that sports is still continuing for persons with this disability. That that has been taken on board positively, and action has been taken. I would say that. I talk to people with disability. Everywhere I go, I would be talking about participating in sports, that it's a new life, and it's not just about being in sports for the moment. There's also something beyond sports. Later in, if you have to leave sports, there's always something that you can engage yourself with to do with sports. Yeah.
Yeah. You've also been involved with many other organizations in Fiji and in the region. One of them has been the Spinal Injuries Association in Fiji, and you've been involved for many years. Can you please tell us how the program supports women with disabilities in terms of increasing the access to employment? And has this included also providing access to jobs in sports-related areas?
With Spinal Injury Association, yes, I've been with the organization for quite a while, and we had been working on getting persons with disabilities on mainstream employment, and that has worked well. We opened up for anyone that would want to employ a person with disability, women, men. We were not being discriminated. We did not discriminate anyone by gender. So we took anyone who would want to find employment, and if they wanted to work in sports, we would try that. But all throughout, since we started the program of finding employment, we haven't had anyone coming across to look for employment in the area of sports. You know, that was just within us being part of the Fiji table tennis, for example. You know, someone wanted to be part of, be a coach. We had to undergo the training, and that would take us across to be a coach or a development program officer who would go out to schools to promote the sport, and that would that person would be getting a pay for that.
So sports-related jobs in sports-related areas is still an area that a bit of work is needed. We also know that you advocate for partnerships and collaborations, not only with the civil society sector, development agency, but also with businesses. Can you give us any examples where you have connected business and sports, and what has been the outcome or opportunities for people with disability as a result of this partnership?
I think we've had a lot of fun days activities way back to 2019 would have been the last year that we have been celebrating and having our fun days in between time before having the International Day for Persons with Disabilities as a big celebration. That is when we engage with other business, other organizations. One that we had up at Brown Street, that was when we involved, I believe it was Vodafone and other organizations, well-known organizations, to have been part of our activity. And we are well supported by these other corporates that come in. Also with one of the activities that was held by, organized by PDF, Pacific Disability Forum, on one of their celebrations, we were part of that, and there were other group of companies that came in to be part of it.
There seems to be more focus on inclusion in sports these days. Are you seeing that in Fiji and in sports in terms of inclusion? And what else do you think needs to be done to ensure that inclusion for people with disability in sports improves?
Thank you. I can see that inclusion is still going on. You know, there's a lot of sports coming in and trying to include persons with disabilities, but then, you know, that is something that they have to bear in mind, that, you know, there are specific needs for persons with disability. You have to look at someone. It doesn't mean that you see 5 people in a wheelchair that they could all be having the same need. It could all be different. There would be someone who would be needing diapers or catheters or uridomes, and these are the little things that we have to consider, and how we can support them in these things, you know, urine bags, and having the sports facilities being accessible to those of us in wheelchairs, and other features that would need to enable other persons with disability, because it's not just us wheelchair users who participate in sports. There are those like the vision impaired and the deaf and the psychosocial who would also want to be part of sports, and you have to look at that in a bigger way. You know, it's not just focusing on us with physical impairment, because you have to also consider those that are not visible, which is the psychosocial. How would you be able to cater for them? You know, to have an understanding of their behavior. You know, when there's a relapse or something like that, and what could be done. To have someone to be there, and having those other special features for the vision impaired and the deaf, having the sign language interpreters to be able to make inclusion better. Yeah.
Yep. Vinaka Mary, my last question to you. What does International Day for Persons with Disabilities or for people with a disability mean to you?
For me, it's a day to celebrate our achievements, our abilities, to showcase our abilities, that we are no different from any other person on this world, in this world.
Thank you for that, Vinaka Vakalevu Mary. It's always so inspiring to hear of the work that you've done and continue to do, and also as a reminder that there's still so much left to do. So thank you so much, Mary. We're going to have question and answers at the end of the session. So for viewers, if you have any questions for Mary, please put them in the chat box, and she will have an opportunity to respond to them once all the speakers have concluded their presentations. Now we'll move on to Vinaka Mary. Now we'll move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Netina Latu Veya from Tonga. Netina is a long-time passionate supporter of sports in Tonga, having worked for the Tonga Association of Sports and the National Olympic Committee, Ministry of Internal Affairs in the Sports Department, and is currently the CEO of the Tonga Table Tennis Federation. Netina has worked on several sport for development programs, including the Australian Sports Outreach Program, Pacific Sports Partnerships, and now Team Up Program, where Table Tennis Federation implements the inclusive and highly successful Smashdown Barriers program. Malo elele Netina, so exciting to have you on the webinar. So maybe to begin with, can you please briefly describe what the Smashdown Barriers program is and what it aims to achieve?
Malo Elele Roshika, and thank you for the opportunity to be sharing with you today. The Smashdown Barriers program in Tonga increases the inclusive participation and improving lives of persons with disabilities here in Tonga, and also women and girls. Our goal is to enable individuals, in particular persons with disabilities, and women and girls to enjoy the lifetime benefits of participating in sports through table tennis, whether it's health, economic, and social inclusion. Yeah.
Great. And what impact have you seen on the lives of participants with a disability throughout the program?
There are multiple benefits to Smashdown Barriers on the lives of our para-athletes or persons with disabilities in Tonga. Most obvious to me is the self-confidence of our participants with disabilities, their self-efficacy, their self-worth. It enables our friends and brothers and sisters with disabilities to get out in public and share confidently. They're able to speak. I've taken Siao Simaka, who's now a full-time employer of Tonga Table Tennis Federation, to a number of official engagements with the government of Australia, and it blesses me to see how they present themselves. They actually now with a second part-time employer, Seremaya. You might have heard of seen the video of Veya Lesieli. Lesieli is a wonderful young woman who we've seen in her life, her development, not just her playing ability in table tennis, but her life just coming out of their homes. We know the perception towards persons with disability, not just in Tonga, but in the region. We see them out with their families, and especially also with their families' own acceptance of their child, of their loved ones. They're able to know that it's okay to take them to the beach, to take them shopping, to take them to the park. So we see that the improvement and the self-esteem and their own self-perception on themselves. I guess to me that's my most successful story from me as a staff of Tonga Table Tennis Federation, and it blesses me. And also I know of the partners and people that we work with, line ministries and NGOs. That's the comments that I get from people, and it encourages me in the work that I do. And I know, especially for our power players and our person with disability, not just in Tongatapu now, Tongatapu on the main island, but out in remote villages where we're extending the Dream Building project funded by ITTF Foundation. We are spreading our awareness of the importance of getting persons with disability active and just into society by simply playing and enjoying table tennis.
Yeah. You mentioned the amazing documentary of Oceania Lesieli, which translates to Loving Lesieli. Can you give us some more insights into what the documentary is about?
Yeah, Lesieli is a beautiful young woman with Down syndrome. She lives on the main island of Tongatapu, and she attends school at the Mango Tree Respite Center. She's been going to the school for 3 years. Amazingly, the first time I went there, I saw Lesieli when our Smashdown barriers officer was, he used to visit twice. He's visiting twice a week, and Lesieli loved to try new things, and of course she volunteered to try table tennis. And just from that first initial day of watching her and the improvement in her participation, her skill, and just the joy in her, and talking to her parents said, oh, she only wants to go to school to play table tennis. And over 2 years, her game had improved so much. And then at the time, we were talking with ITTF Oceania, and we selected her to film because her life and what the Smashdown Barriers program had done to really engage her into more school, more into her village and her church. Her parents said, she wants to go places now. She's not shy to go to church, go to the church concert, go to the community functions and stuff. So the video shows us a little bit of what has changed immensely in her life because of her participation in table tennis and what table tennis had done to her, given to her.
Yep. So with the programs you run for people with disability, employing people with disability, and the fantastic documentary that you've just spoken about, including others on sport and disability, how do you think all of this has shifted awareness and attitudes towards people with disability in Tonga?
There has been so much awareness through Team Up, and we sincerely grateful to the government and people of Australia through Team Up for the assistance and all the support that they have put into the program, the Smashdown Barriers program here in Tonga. A lot of people seen the short clip of the video. The video had been televised. The full 20-minute documentary was aired in a couple of months ago. And what the feedback that we get from the general public, from the shopkeeper in the village, from, the beachgoers, they are quite impressed seeing Lesieli, a girl with Down syndrome, it's never been seen in Tonga before, to have a person with Down syndrome, let alone a person with disability, fully engaged and seeing her life changed. And Lesieli is a great ambassador for Smashdown Barriers here in Tonga. She attends events. Her parents, full support of her parents. She's coming to a monthly competition. She takes part in a monthly competition. She's just been part of the NATA team at our annual business house competition, which the final was last Friday. So, you know, her life has been immensely, it's been massively made a difference in Tonga on how the public and people perceive person with disability, especially when they see the way how she plays her backhand is fierce. Not just Lesieli, but our power players. It's quite extraordinary what they can do, what our power players can do, and the feedback that we get from people that are actually playing against them. As I said in Business House, they're quite overwhelmed by the level of skill that our power players.
Amazing work and inspiring. You know, I was saying to Mary earlier, there seems to be more focus on inclusion in sports these days. Are you seeing that in Tonga and in sports? And what else do you think needs to be done to ensure that inclusion for people with disability improves in sport and in all other areas of life?
I guess as partners who are active in promoting social inclusion of persons with disability via sport, we need to continue to work together in partnerships. I believe we live in small communities in the Pacific, and no one is a man on its own. We need friends and partners to go forth. As you're in here, we team up with our ITTF Oceania, ITTF Foundation. We have we need each other, and our partnerships we need to develop and to keep it going. Tonga Table Tennis, we have a good partnership and relationship with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, our Ministry of Health, our Ministry of Education, our Ministry of MADEC, which is the Ministry of Meteorology, Energy, Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change, and Communications. That's a mouthful. And also TASANO, our Tonga Sports Association, National Olympic Committee, and also local businesses. And I agree. If we need inclusion of persons with disability in sports or any other areas in life, we just need to continue and build on those partnerships. I hope I answered your question, Rashika.
Yeah, no, you have. And it's amazing the amount of work that has been done in Tonga, and looking forward to seeing more work done in this area. Maybe my final question to you, Netina, is what does International Day for people with a disability or for persons with disabilities mean to you? What does it mean to you? And how do you plan to celebrate or mark the day tomorrow?
International Day of Persons with Disability means to me the achievement and the life of persons with disability, the life of my friends with disability. They have special, abilities, amazing abilities, different abilities, and I believe that we've all been gifted by God with different abilities. Some were sent as teachers, some were sent as doctors, some administrators, and some are sports lovers. But when we come together, we're able to enhance our skills and our gifts. Tomorrow, we are joining the Ministry of Internal Affairs in marking the day. Tonga Table Tennis Federation will celebrate the day out in one of our remote communities on Monday, the 6th. There's just a lot of events happening tomorrow. So we choose to celebrate on the 6th of December. It's a public holiday here. And Golonga, which is out in the eastern end of the main island, this is where the Dream Building project has been launched in September. Yeah. And together with Team Up, we are working with our volunteers in those communities, in those remote communities away from town, to build their capacity on how to run and organize fun, bounce it back, table tennis activities for our friends out there. And we're going to take a whole lot of trucks of persons with disability, our friends from town. We are anticipating we get over 100. School is out, so we are advertising for for the people out in the eastern ends to come and join, have fun, celebrate our friends with special abilities, and to play table tennis. What better way to spend your public holiday but play table tennis?
Yep. And looking forward to seeing all the coverage and the photos that will come out of this event. So all the best for the event. And Malo Pito Netina, thank you so much for sharing with us. For the viewers, if you have any questions for Netina, please put them in the chat box. And once we conclude with the third speaker, we will then proceed to answer some of the questions depending on the time that we have. So just alerting the sign language interpreters, Gail and Krishnir, our next speaker is on. So our next speaker is Sebastian Egan, who is the Deaf Rugby Development Officer for the PNG Rugby Union Inclusion Impact Program. He works side by side with his colleague, Veya Gaba, who is the National Coordinator for PNG's Rugby Union's Inclusion Impact Program. The program uses sport to bring people together. It champions inclusion and creates opportunities, and is delivered in partnership with the PNG Deaf Association, Oceania Rugby, and Rugby Australia. Sebastian has been playing sport since childhood and began playing in rugby union in 2018. Sebastian had a bit of difficulties this afternoon in terms of internet connectivity to join us. So I am so happy that it finally worked out and we have Sebastian on the webinar with us. Indeed, an honor to be speaking with Sebastian, and we're so lucky to have Sebastian with us. So Sebastian, you work on the Team Up supported PNG Rugby Inclusion Impact Program. How important is it that these programs employ people with a disability?
Yes, it's very important that persons with disabilities are included. Like myself, because it gives power and courage. And shows that people have the right to be included.
So you are a qualified rugby coach. When coaching rugby, what other messages do you provide as a role model to others to help them, to encourage them? So Gail, maybe what we'll do, we will have a couple more questions. There's a couple of questions we've received on the chat forum. Maybe we'll attend to those questions whilst Sebastian takes some time to process this, and then perhaps you can interpret that for us after we've asked those couple of questions that have come in the chat room. Is that okay?
Sorry, I was signing to you. Yes, perfect.
Okay, excellent.
My
Thank you,
apologies.
Gail. Thank you for all the three speakers. We still have a couple of questions for Sebastian, and really hoping that the internet connectivity comes back and we're able to, ask Sebastian some of the other questions that we had. But we've had the privilege of hearing three amazing speakers, of signing with a speaker and learning of the experiences and journey in sports. We've had of how the power of sport changes people and communities. So we've had two questions that have come. One is for Mary and one is for Netina. Perhaps I'll go to Mary first. Is there a priority need for the Paralympic sports at the moment? And which Paralympic sports are active in Fiji right now?
Thank you, Roshika. I guess for Paralympic sports, I would say that table tennis has been going ahead. They've just started training again. That's what I've seen in the on Facebook. Well, I've actually had an invite to be part of the training last week, if I remember correctly. Not so much of the other sports. I haven't heard of the other sports, what is happening, but I do know that table tennis has started again. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Netina, I have a question for you too from the chat room. The question is, you employ people with disability. How important is this to provide role model for participants and also employment and leadership opportunities for those fantastic staff you have?
Yeah, it's highly important. Siausi and Selemaya, my staff, they go out to school and disability centers to run inclusive table tennis programs. And I've accompanied Selemaya to a number of schools, and it's the impact that it has on the children, you know, firsthand story coming from a person with a disability, teaching, you know, what the children see. And then at the end of the Bounce It Back program, there is an educational session on inclusion. And it's an educational session on inclusion, and it's shared by Selemaya. And he also shares from his own personal stories as a person living in with a disability, and how that comes around. So it's very important, and it's because the children would see firsthand, of course, why they need to be accepting of others as themselves. And also when it comes from a person with a disability, it makes a lot more sense. And absolutely, the children, as we know, you know, what they see and what they hear, they pick up. And the children are the leaders of tomorrow. And if we want to make tomorrow better, we invest on it now, working our staff with disability. And I fully support what we do, and I encourage my friends from other sports federations that they could do the same. Whatever job, whether big or small, a person with disability can do. Yeah, it adds value to the work and the objectives and the goal and mission of your sports federation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Netina. Maybe we can ask all the speakers at this stage, in one word, how do you describe what sports mean to you in one word? So Mary, Netina, and Sebastian. So Gail, if you can check if Sebastian is back online. So maybe we'll start with you, Netina.
One word?
Yes, one word.
Enhances. To me, it enhances lives. It enhances life of a person.
Yep. Thank you. Mary?
I'm still thinking. I would say sport, short. Sport is life.
Life? Yes. Life. Sebastian?
Sebastian says it's life. Sport is life.
Life. We've had, words like courage, power, self-confidence, esteem. All of them have been used by the speakers in their responses to the questions. So, and some of the speakers has shared how there still needs to be a lot more work to be done. So with that, I just want to thank you all for your time, for your contributions to the webinar today. Unfortunately, time has caught up on us, but please feel free to reach out to the speakers if others have questions. If you have put them in the chat room, if feel free to directly reach out to the speakers or to team up if you'd like to follow up on the session or to your questions. Team Up hopes to create similar spaces in the future to hear more amazing speakers from the region and to continue the discussions on inclusion and diversity in sports, because there are many challenges, right from internet connectivity, to accessibility and accommodation challenges. As I had mentioned earlier that we have a short poll for our viewers. So please take a minute to complete that. It's going to be on your screen soon. In the meantime, whilst you completing the poll, I would like to thank Paul Bird, Mary, Sebastian, and Netina for sharing your experiences and journey with us, for which we are deeply grateful for and inspired by. We'd also like to express our gratitude to all the viewers for joining us for the webinar to commemorate International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Team Up has a short video that has been produced in very close collaboration with our Team Up partners to showcase their work and programs. It will also be published across our social media later today, so please share it widely. But perhaps I can ask Joanna to show the video at this point in time. So enjoy the video, and wishing you all a happy International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and solidarity to all for harnessing the power of sports to change people and communities. Vinaka Vakalevu, and thank you, everyone.
Vinaka. My name is Nakitale Ulun Kortam. I am a quadriplegic. I have been using a wheelchair for now 15 years. The reason why I'm part of this program with Smashdown barriers is because table tennis is a sport that is very inclusive towards persons with disabilities. One thing that has really changed in my life is the way that I live. Before Smashdown barriers, I used to just stay home and not do anything, but because Smashdown barriers has come with this program, including table tennis, I had wheelchair users come up to me and say, "Hey Nafi, just come out and this is a sport that you can play." And ever since that, I've been outgoing and I've been very energetic, and it's also helped in my health.
My name is Memafu Eddie. I'm one of the Gym Bed Inclusive Program Coach. We run both gymnastics and badminton, which is called the Gym Bed Inclusive Program. Based on the activities that we run, we've seen and learned from the carers and teachers that some of the students with intellectual disabilities can now match colors and are learning faster than normal. Few with physical disabilities can do coordination and balance with minimal support from their carers. It is so much joy to hear from their carers and teachers that we are doing something for these kids.
Nemplomi Alex, mi Vanuatu, mi type owan sportbike, and mi type back to me lo Oki.
My name is Sandra Adel. I'm from Vanuatu. I work as a carer. We help people with disability.
Me like teach, but a parlor, but I meet friend.
Nemplomi Roy Samuel, mi myself swimming pool. Was also the middle, like Alpha. Come tell for me, because you swim, no, yeah. Mr. Swim, Mr. Swim, me one, so that.
Malo elere, topingo a focus ere mai ro aman, o ngau e foki ke ka tenis te pile a Tonga, I e polokalama ko e tae whakafoki mai. Ko langa te foki ke ngai a pia ko lau tohi ko no a kopi a whanki, whanki wainga tenis te pile ke rongai whanau, pe ke ngā tai o wei pa me whanki le soni ko no whakaurunga ngā I ki nau tolu ke nau ofa tatau pe e te nau tolu o tatau pe ki tō tāwhanga ka I e whaisi no.
This year on December 3rd, we are celebrating the people with disability. We are visiting children with special needs and giving up things that we hope that they will enjoy. This is done because we have been working with them during the school hours.
One thing I've learned is not to judge a book by its cover and to see the whole picture.
Samoa Cricket and Cricket Australia is using cricket as a platform to empower, educate, and promote awareness of people with a disability in schools and communities. Working with disability is very challenging for me, since all of these kids have different type of disability, but all these kids, there's something common with them. They have cheerful hearts, beautiful smiles, and they always make my day.